Thank you all for coming. When we talked about this, we were hoping to have, again this year, as we did last year, 400 in attendance. So it's amazing. Thank you all for getting up early. We have a great morning ahead for all of you. I'm Barbara Bartle, president of the Lincoln Community Foundation and one of the 13 funders of Lincoln Vital Signs. Lincoln Vital Signs was started several years ago because leaders of Lincoln's philanthropic organizations were concerned about the federal, state, and local budget cuts, while community needs were increasing. To get a more comprehensive understanding of Lincoln for themselves, as well as a way to share that information with the larger community, a study was commissioned. We have great resources for data in Lincoln, but information exists in many different places throughout the city. There had not been one comprehensive overview of existing data that brings many information sources together to measure the strength and health of our community, as well as the challenges. In January 2014, the inaugural Lincoln Vital Signs report was released to the community. Today's launch of Lincoln Vital Signs 2015 has 2 additional years of accumulated data to draw from as we provide a shared understanding of our city, both its strengths and challenges. The study, assembled by the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center, is based on existing research and data. It has been a large, collaborative effort with leaders of Lincoln's public, private, and philanthropic organizations. Representatives from each funder serve as the advisory council for the study. I would like the representatives to please stand and remain standing so that they can be recognized. Able Foundation, Ross McCown. City of Lincoln, Rick Hoppy. Community Health Endowment, Lori Seibel. Cooper Foundation, Victoria Kovar. Educare of Lincoln, Eric Buchanan. Please stand so we can recognize you. Foundation for Lincoln Public Schools, Wendy Van. Lancaster County, Sarah Hoyle. Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development, Pat Haverty. Lincoln Community Foundation, Sarah Peets and myself. Nebraska Children and Families Foundation, Betty Mettinger. United Way of Lincoln and Lancaster County, Brian Watchman and Robin McDaniel. University of Nebraska Foundation, Megan Schaefer. And Woods Charitable Fund, Tom Woods. Would you all please be sure you're standing so we can thank you. What trends are improving and what areas need improvement? For an update, please welcome Dr. Nancy Shank with the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center. Just wait 1 minute here. Okay. I want to take a moment for all of us to give a community note of appreciation. For the past 3 or 4 years, the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center has been working in this community to develop this great new tool. And that is because of their great leadership that we all have this today. Dr. Nancy Shank and her team have provided incredible professional leadership. They have the expertise, the energy, and most of all, they have worked so hard to make this happen. I can't tell you how many times, dozens of times this year, I've called Nancy to see if she can make a presentation to an organization in this community, and she has never turned me down. So please help me thank Nancy and her team at the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center.
Thanks very much, Barb, for those kind words. It's been a delight working with the Lincoln Community Foundation and members of the advisory committee on this project. And the Public Policy Center is really excited to be a part of this project that uses data to educate the community and spur community action on important topics. The Lincoln Vital Signs Report gathers data in 7 general areas, and those are listed in the tab at your tables today. Those areas are an overall community profile, economy and workforce, basic needs, education, health, safety, community involvement, and culture. You can find the compilation of about 100 metrics in the Lincoln Vital Signs report posted at the Lincoln Vital Signs website at lincolnvitalsigns.org. The full report is about 100 easy-to-read pages of text and graphs. This year's report includes some new metrics. So for those of you who read last year's report, you've got some new things to look forward to. Some of those include perceptions of personal and community life, child care costs, household income, preschool programs, post-secondary enrollment and graduation, behavioral health services, and domestic and child violence. This morning, I promise I will give you only an overview of those 100 pages, not march you through each of the 100 pages. So today, my plan is, first of all, to give you 2 highlights from the report. First, an area of improvement from last year's report, and secondly, an area that needs improvement. Then I will update you on some of the data from the 2014 report with the 2 years of new data in many areas that Barb mentioned. So first of all, the area of improvement. Last year, one of the surprises of the report was that Lincoln did not escape the recession unscathed. Despite our low unemployment rates, we saw decreases in many areas of economic vitality in our community and increases in people needing social services assistance. This year, data show that Lincoln is truly rebounding from the recession, and I'll give you a couple of examples in the data that we found. The value of commercial building permits has doubled from a low in 2009 to last year's annual value of $463 million. We know Lincoln has had low unemployment even during the recession, but we find that our unemployment figures continue to drop and continue to be among the lowest in the United States. And finally, employers report that they have jobs available for qualified workers. What a wonderful place, what a wonderful position for Lincoln to be in. Second, I'd like to move to an area that needs improvement. The 2014 Vital Signs report found a dramatic increase in the number of people in poverty. This year, we continue to see higher rates of poverty than we did prior to 2009. The typical person in poverty may surprise you. Not including our college students, the typical person in poverty is a white child with a single parent mother. We know that low-wage earners across the United States, low-wage earners across the United States, 2 incomes are often essential. Perhaps it's not surprising then that single parents especially struggle to escape poverty. Childcare costs can be daunting. Typically, childcare costs consume 42% of the income of a single-parent household. And in fact, it would cost families more for childcare for young children in our community than it does for tuition and fees annually for them to send that child to the University of Nebraska. So I think that says something about high childcare costs as well as the great value of the University of Nebraska. Now I would like to update you on the 3 cross-cutting themes we established in last year's report and give you some updated data in those areas. Our first theme last year was that Lincoln does many things exceptionally well and that those areas should be nurtured. Along with the rebounding economy, Lincoln is experiencing many positive trends. Our population continues to grow in numbers and grow in diversity. Lincoln continues to be a safe community. Our overall crime rate has decreased 34% over the last 9 years, and that continues to be at a faster rate than other comparably sized communities across the United States. Homelessness has continued to decline from a high in 2012, and Lincoln's overall rankings for well-being continue to be among the highest across the United States. Our second cross-cutting finding was a growing proportion of our community faces real need. This despite the fact that Lincoln is a hard-working community. We have one of the highest rates of workforce participation of any community across the United States, and this is across all working age groups, including parental workforce participation. Despite that, Lincoln has a higher poverty rate than the United States as a whole. When I talk about poverty, that is the threshold set by the U.S. Census Bureau. And the Census Bureau defines poverty based on household size and composition. So for a family of 4 with 2 adults and 2 children, that family would fall below the poverty threshold with an income of about $24,000. For a single person, that threshold is about $12,000. Another indicator that we found was that household income has declined over the last decade in Lincoln when adjusted for inflation. We went from a median income of $53,000 to a median income of $48,000. And finally, persons who are African American and Hispanic Latino experience much higher rates of unemployment and poverty than the majority community. The third cross-cutting theme that we established is that a certain percentage of Lincoln's children fare poorly on a number of measures, and I'd like to give you some examples of those. Lincoln has a higher poverty rate, not just for our overall population, but also for our children. About 1 in 5 of our children in Lincoln live in a household that falls below the poverty threshold. Our low-income children continue to have lower educational achievement and attainment than children not living in low-income households. And we see this from the earliest standardized testing in 3rd grade all the way through to lower graduation rates. Research suggests that achievement gaps exist by kindergarten. 34 states and the District of Columbia have mandated kindergarten readiness assessments for kindergartners. Nebraska does not, so we can't track that readiness at kindergarten. We also know that children from low-income families face challenges and summer learning losses throughout their K-12 education. Between Lincoln's high workforce participation and the importance of preschool, after-school, and summer programming, more supports may be needed for our children at these critical points in their development. And thirdly, many students from racial and ethnic minorities also continue to lag in educational achievement and attainment throughout their K-12 education. Well, as I promised, these are only a few of the highlights of the Lincoln Vital Signs report. And I'd like to acknowledge my co-author, Dr. Stacy Hoffman, also of the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center, and the many people and organizations, many of you in this room, that helped contribute data for the 2014 report. As Barb mentioned, I've had the great honor and opportunity to present the findings from last year's report to many classes, organizations, and clubs throughout our community. One question I've frequently been asked is, well, this is really interesting data. There are great things happening in our community that we agree we need to continue to nurture. Sounds like there are some areas that need improvement. What is the community going to do about it? Well, Barb, I think we're ready to hear about some exciting plans for community involvement and some next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, again to you and your colleagues for the great work. Our action steps to address Lincoln vital signs have been be informed, get involved. Over the past year, dozens of conversations and meetings have taken place to inform, share, and discuss the findings from Lincoln Vital Signs 2014. Organizations have used this new tool for strategic planning, decision-making, and grant-making. We have learned from the conversations and connections that there's a common sense of readiness and willingness to address the findings. Where do we go from here? How do you get involved? With this readiness in the community, it is time to bring the Lincoln Vital Signs report to life by working on a shared community agenda and corresponding action plan for positive change in Lincoln. Today, Prosper Lincoln, a new community effort, is launching to make our city an even better place to live and grow, a place where everyone can prosper. Discussion will center on 3 main themes and address the findings in Lincoln Vital Signs. The first one is nurture youth success from cradle to career. Number 2, grow economic prosperity for all Lincolnites. Number 3, enhance quality of life. It is clear that major initiatives to build Lincoln's success and to tackle the complex issues identified will require collaboration among all sectors of our community: businesses, nonprofit organizations, government, faith communities, philanthropies, and individuals. Now, through July 1st, action ideas will be gathered. The University of Nebraska Public Policy Center will synthesize those ideas. Then in August, the Prosper Lincoln Steering Committee will use the information to develop a community agenda with working groups to build a community action plan. This phase culminates next fall, and we will all convene here again. Perhaps we'll start filling up some of the seats in the arena, and we will learn about the community action plan later this year. I want to recognize and thank our community leaders who have agreed to guide this work. The engagement team has been working since January. These are the people who will help us reach all segments of our community, inviting them to share their ideas for helping Lincoln prosper. Engagement committee members are listed on the screen, and they represent 8 sectors in the community. In addition, Robin McDaniel is serving as the engagement coordinator. I would like to ask our Community Engagement Committee to please stand so we can all thank them for their leadership. Would you please stand? They have been meeting every 2 weeks, and we can thank them for getting this great crowd here this morning. They will be working in the community with all of you over the next 6 weeks to create participation from corner to corner of this city. After the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center synthesizes all of our great ideas that we're going to give them, the steering committee, again representing all sectors of the city, will begin its work. If you'd look and see their names on the screen right now, Joanne Martin, CEO of Emeritus, and Rich Bailey, retired chairman of Bailey Lauerman, will join me as tri-chairs. Will the steering committee please stand so we can recognize you? At the breakfast last year, and after every presentation made throughout the year, people asked, how can I get involved? Prosper Lincoln is now that response and is the community effort. Please take one of the idea cards. I think they were on your seat, actually, if you'd get that idea card out right now. We hope you will fill out your card today and leave it in one of the Prosper Lincoln boxes on the way out. Another easy way is for you to share your ideas online. And we just launched this morning prosperlincoln.org. And it'll be very easy. You can also go online right now if you like and fill out your idea card there. And again, these idea cards will be submitted to the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center. Give us your ideas today. Encourage others to submit ideas online. Over the next 6 weeks, we intend to gather thousands of action ideas. It will take all of us working together to reach the entire city. The website, Prosper Lincoln, has idea cards and a discussion guide you can print and use for meetings, for places where you interact. It will provide the information you need to talk about Prosper Lincoln at your office, with your faith groups, your corporation, your service clubs, and with your friends. Use your networks and get involved. Let's take this city by storm with this inclusive community effort. Remember, the intent of Prosper Lincoln is to develop a community agenda to address the findings of Lincoln Vital Signs. We have invited 2 community leaders with us this morning to highlight the 3 themes of Prosper Lincoln. Joanne Martin, Tri-Chair of Prosper Lincoln, will introduce our speakers, but first, Rich Bailey, also a Tri-Chair, will introduce a special guest. Please welcome Rich Bailey.
Thank you, Barb, and thanks to all of you for being an important part of this great launch this morning. It's my great honor to introduce a gentleman who's just had his dance card renewed for the next 4 years by the voters of our great city, a gentleman who knows full well how special Lincoln is, because for the last 8 years he's been an important part of making it so special. He shares our pride for the fact that Lincoln continually ranks on so many national top 10 lists in terms of overall quality of life, but he realizes that Lincoln won't be truly an outstanding city until everyone is able to share in the promise of Prosper Lincoln. Please help me welcome our current and future mayor, Chris Beitler.
There are some risks involved when you have a person like Rich Bailey introduce you and have such a sharp sense of humor. But I came out unscathed today. Thank you very much, Rich. I'm delighted to be back with you. I don't want to miss a beat in terms of helping out with whatever can make Lincoln a better place to live. And this effort certainly points the way to making Lincoln a better place. Just a few days ago, we witnessed again how this community comes together to help each other and to move forward. As Salt Creek was threatening to go over the levee, all levels of local government and nonprofits and profits came together to keep our residents safe. The fact that we did not see massive flooding from Salt Creek or Antelope Creek is a testament to partnerships completed along the way, going back many years with the NRD and others on flood control projects like Antelope Valley. And today we're gathering here at Pinnacle Bank Arena, a facility that would not have opened without the community coming together to support it. So with Prosper Lincoln, we again have an exciting opportunity to do what we do best, and that is working across all sectors of the city to find solutions. Lincoln has a lot going for it. We are ranked as a great city to work in, to start a business, to live, to raise a family, to retire. But as the latest Vital Signs report indicates, we have more to do. Many Lincoln families are struggling. 1 in 5 Lincoln children live in poverty. And making people aware of the challenges that remain is, of course, the first step to finding solutions. I believe that Prosper Lincoln will help us build an even better community. Lincoln is proud to be a partner of both the Vital Signs work and Prosper Lincoln. And we believe in this effort and are more than ready to do our part. As Barb said, we need your ideas on the idea cards to make this process work. So I've already filled in my idea card to get the ball rolling here a little bit. And our idea is to invest in our young people by forming a closer partnership between the city and LPS and nonprofits to strengthen and sustain our community learning centers. Now it's your turn. So get those cards filled out and let's everyone do their part to move Lincoln forward. Thank you.
So the pressure is on. If the mayor's got his idea card in, we all need to flood the idea card, so please do so. It is my great privilege to introduce our 2 speakers. Our first speaker, Kim Russell, and there's no better person, will talk to us a little bit about growing economic prosperity in Lincoln and enhancing our quality of life. And that's what Kim does 24/7 here in Lincoln. As most of you know, Kim Russell is President and Chief Executive Officer of Bryan Health. Kim is an active member of the Board of Directors of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, Lincoln Partnership of Economic Development, the Lincoln Medical Education Partnership, the Nebraska Hospital Association, Community Health Endowment, Nebraska Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where she is chair right now, and the Foundation for Educational Services. I asked Kim this morning if she's ever in the office, and she said this is her life in her office, so welcome, Kim.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Joanne, for that kind introduction. I asked her to keep it short. I think it was too long. What do you think? Well, one of the absolutely best parts about my role at Bryan Health is that I do have the opportunity to be involved in so many different organizations that cut across all the different sectors of our community. And one common thread across every community meeting I attend these days, every group, every organization, every sector of our community, is the need for Lincoln to grow the workforce. The much discussed low employment rate has brought this challenge and this opportunity into the forefront. This seems to be the topic on everyone's lips these days. So when the Lincoln Community Foundation began its early work on vital signs, and now Prosper Lincoln, frankly, it was a big aha moment for me. We have people in this community who are eager for more prosperity and for more opportunity, and we are so fortunate to have abundant job opportunities at all levels, unskilled, skilled, professional, technical, managerial, executive, all those job opportunities exist in our community. And we're also blessed with tremendous educational resources in our community from both the public and the private sector. So again, to me, big aha for pulling all of this together. Prosper Lincoln is one avenue for our community to come together around its challenges and opportunities, and that's something that has always impressed me about Lincoln. We always do come together. And so I believe we need to focus on workforce development as the pathway to a much more prosperous Lincoln. And if all of that fails with respect to expanding the workforce, Bryan Health will be delivering over 3,200 babies this year, so we will whip this workforce thing one way or the other. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim, for those wise words. You know, just as Rich talked about how the mayor had just stamped his passport for 4 more years here in Lincoln, I could make it 5, for 4 more years here in Lincoln. So I do want to introduce a new person to Lincoln, and that is Dr. Hank Bounds from the University of Nebraska. And I've met Hank a few times, and I can tell you that he has stamped his Nebraska passport. I think he's seen parts of Nebraska that I'm not sure all of us have seen. So he's been out and around and about the state already. On January 12, 2015, the Board of Regents appointed lifelong educator Hank Bounds, PhD, as the 7th president of the University of Nebraska. Bounds began his tenure as president on April 13, 2015. Bounds has devoted his 25-year career to helping change students' lives in the same way education opened doors in his own life. He began as a high school teacher, then rose to principal, superintendent, and state superintendent before becoming Mississippi's Commissioner of Higher Education in 2009. Bounds also worked with partners to develop plans to increase educational attainment in Mississippi, including a Center for Education Innovation focused on improving learning opportunities for disadvantaged children. Bounds created an office to foster relationships among university researchers, business and industry, and economic developers. He was tapped by the business community to chair a major statewide initiative to create an action plan to improve Mississippi's competitive position. Bounds brings this experience to us here in Lincoln and to the University of Nebraska. Bounds and his wife Susie, who will be joining him this summer, are the parents of a son, Will, and a daughter, Caroline. Let's give him a big Nebraska and a big Lincoln welcome.
Good morning. Come on, good morning. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Barbara. Joanne, I appreciate what you do, what your organization does to help move prosperity in our city. And so I'll have to tell you that when I was being recruited to come to Nebraska, the first thing that I said to the headhunter was no. It was only after Susie and I made a sort of what we call our secret shopper tour and visited schools, mayor visited your community, talked with people, and learned how special this place is, that we said, this is the kind of place where we want to raise our children. And so as I look across the audience this morning and see the vast number of people that have been assembled here to focus on this issue, I'll have to tell you the real reason that I came here. I wanted to be in a place, I wanted to go to a place where I could talk to people about changing the world. And when I think about changing the world, to me, it's about changing the world to make it a better place for Will and Caroline. So if you think about what's happened across our, from the beginning of our country until now, every generation has lived longer than the preceding generation. Every generation has been more affluent than the preceding generation. And for the first time in the history of our country, demographers, other researchers are telling us that that won't happen. And that's just unacceptable to me. And so if we're going to, if you think about changing the world, where do you have to start? You have to start in your own backyard. And so I'm proud to be a citizen of Lincoln. Mayor, we're going to grow your population by 3 in about 3 weeks. And so I'm excited about that. And so as I read this vital signs report, I think, wow, my community really gets it. Because the first thing that you have to do if you're going to change some statistic is to really understand the data in a deep and powerful way. Barbara, you guys have done that. And Nancy, thanks to the university's work, you've done that kind of work, and so you understand it. And so there are some good points that we should celebrate and hold up and use as a calling card as we think about bringing those other companies in so that our citizens will have opportunities. But we also really have to pay attention to the not so good points. And this issue around poverty is a real issue. And so when you think about poverty, when I think about poverty, the first thing that I recognize as a lifelong educator is that it is the #1 predictor of whether or not students will be successful. And so consider this set of statistics. The child growing up in poverty typically, not in all cases, typically does not live in a print-rich or vocabulary-rich environment. On average, the child growing up in poverty has heard 20 million fewer words by age 5 than the affluent child by age 5. The affluent 5-year-old has the same vocabulary as the 20-year-old who has lived in poverty all of his or her life. And so what does that mean for us? So if we have 1 in 5 students, 1 in 5 young people living in this community who arrive in kindergarten from a poverty environment, that means that they probably have vocabulary levels that are somewhere below a 5-year-old. And what we know about that is if you're not ready to enter kindergarten, so if you enter kindergarten with a vocabulary level of a 3-year-old, that's the best predictor of reading success. And what we know, what the research is abundantly clear on, is if you arrive there with a vocabulary level less than a 5-year-old, you're exponentially more unlikely to be reading proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade. If you can't read proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade, you're exponentially more likely to drop out of high school, you're exponentially more likely to go to prison. There are a number of states in this country that actually predict prison bed space based on the number of students who can't read proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade. So let that statistic just sink in a minute and think of the fact that we are 1 in 5. It's a call to arms. And the good news is that the horsepower exists in this room, if you will, to figure that issue out. If we're going to talk about economic prosperity, you can't have that conversation without attacking this issue. You can't attack this issue without thinking about how do you engage all partners, whether it's the business community, whether it's early ed providers, whether it's the public schools, the community colleges, the state college, the private colleges, the University of Nebraska. We all have a role to play. And so the key is how do we sort of let our guard down and figure out a way to hold hands, build the best possible model for our young people. And so Again, I want to encourage you to fill out your card. Think about ways that your organization can be a part of the solution. The issues are real, they're deep. I think about where the world that Will and Caroline will grow up in. And here's what we know. There will be tens of millions of jobs created over the next decade. Problem number one is we don't know what the jobs are because they haven't been invented yet. Problem number two is that every one of those jobs will require some education beyond high school. The problem for us is 1 in 5 of our students are growing up in poverty, so they're not going to have the opportunity to participate there unless we do something in a very different and meaningful way. And so the bad news here is that I don't know of any community-wide effort like this anywhere. There may exist somewhere, and so there's really not a roadmap that's been created. There are places like the Harlem Children's Zone in New York where they've taken a couple blocks and figured this issue out, but I don't know of any community that has said, we're going to attack this issue. The great news for me is, number one, look around the room, all the people that are coming together to focus on Will and Caroline's generation. Our children, our grandchildren deserve this kind of effort. This is something that we can impact dramatically. We've got to think about short-term and long-term. You know, we can't think from a political view. We can't think in a 4-year window. We've got to think about this through a 20-year window. How do we attack, students that are 15 to 20 years old, 20 to 30 years old, but also how do we attack the issue from birth to age 5, and then how do we think about how we engage parents, particularly young parents, particular single parents. This is really rocket science when you think about it. How do you help a mom who can't read, that's single, and has an infant? How do you help that person get their child to a place where they can be a contributor? Because that's what this is really all about. If we're trying to grow our economy, then we can't take 20% out of the game. Because that 20%, so if you get a college education, what do we know about those people? They're more likely to vote mayor. They're less likely to have health issues. They're more likely to read to their children, and the benefits go on and on and on. So I know I'm running out of time here, Barbara. This is an issue that I'm really passionate about. I think if we can figure it out here in Lincoln, then it gives us an opportunity to show other communities how to do the same thing, and that's really a change the world kind of game plan. So, Barbara, to you and the organization here, to those folks who are providing leadership, on behalf of the University of Nebraska, we are ready to roll our sleeves up and go to work on changing Lincoln and the world. Thanks.
Thank you, Hank. We are thrilled that you want to change the world, and you are here, and we all are ready to join you, so thank you so much. It's great to have you in Nebraska, and specifically in Lincoln. Our speakers have provided inspiration and aspiration as we think about our own ideas for Prosper Lincoln. Quality early childhood education, workforce development, job training, post-secondary education for students and parents, supportive family policies at our institutions. The more children and families on the pathway to success, the more secure is Lincoln's future prosperity. Willa Cather wrote in My Antonia, there seemed to be nothing to see, no fences, no creeks or trees, no hills or fields. If there was a road, I could not make it out in the faint starlight. There was nothing but land, not a country at all, but the material out of which countries are made. Today, Cather's vast, barren prairie has become a vibrant state. We enjoy calling the state capital, Lincoln, our home. While we look to the past with pride in the pioneer spirit upon which this city is built, we muster this same inherited grit and determination to help us shape the character of our community as we grow and evolve. We need to pay attention to the changes in our city. The data in Lincoln Vital Signs opens up a conversation. How can we help all of our citizens prosper and reach their full potential? We need the knowledge, the energy, and the insights from all the people in Lincoln to develop a community agenda that will leave our community stronger than it was before we began. We all have skin in the game. Let's get after results. How will you respond to this call to action? As we launch Prosper Lincoln for our great city, here are our tasks. Number 1, fill out your idea card this morning and place it in one of the boxes as you leave. You can also go online right now and do the same at prosperlincoln.org. So what is this all about the next 6 months? Idea cards, idea cards, idea cards. We want everyone corner to corner talking about, have you sent in your idea? So if you leave here today, that's the message. We need everybody's voice in creating this agenda. Number 2, leave Pinnacle this morning and ask 100 people to fill out an idea card before July 1st. So that's the mission. That's Prosper Lincoln. We're going to get to the implementation, but first we need the ideas. So that's our charge today. I would like all of our committee members, both the steering and the engagement committee, to stand and quickly move to the center of the room. So engagement and steering committee members, if you would please quickly move to the center of the room under the scoreboard. While they are moving to the center, I want to create a visual here for all of us so that we can see the breadth of the community represented in this room. Now I want everybody in the room to join in this work. So let's start. If you're in the business sector, would you please stand right now and remain standing at your table? If you're in the business sector. So look around, everybody. Now will the nonprofit sector stand and join the business sector? If you're in the public sector, if you work in the public sector, please stand. Our universities, colleges, and medical facilities, please stand. P12 education. The philanthropic community. The faith community, or members of a faith community. If you live in a neighborhood in Lincoln, please stand. If you love Lincoln, will you please stand? And I hope by now everyone is standing. Look at us and think of the connections in this room. It is up to all of us to work together to build Lincoln's future. We have the grit, we have the energy, we have the ideas. We are Lincoln. Let's get involved. Thanks for being here this morning.